Welcome back to the Porsche Car Whisperer video. If this is your first time checking out my channel, my name is Mason Gilchrist and I cover everything Porsche. And today I'll be going over what are some of the differences we can find from the 992 Carrera S to the 992 Carrera GTS. So let's go ahead and get into some of the changes. Okay, so before we get into the meat potatoes of this video, I want to take a quick moment to let you guys know that both of these 911s are for sale here at Porsche Irvine in Southern California. We have this beautiful 2023 911 Carrera GTS in Python Green, which is actually going to be your last chance to get a Python Green 911, as this color is being discontinued for model year 2024. Now, for those of you who have not seen my video, I actually made a video on what are some of the changes we can find for model year 2024 for the 911, and the link will actually be right up here above. Now, going over to this 911 Carrera S, we have a 2020 911 Carrera S, has about 10,000 miles on it, and this car is certified. There is no pricing on this car yet, but that will be to come, and I'll leave it actually down in the description below. Now, before we really get deep into this, I want to talk about what are some of the differences and where does the GTS name come from? Well, GTS stands for
Gran Turismo Sport.
It's actually derived from the 904 GTS starting in 1963, which is just about as old as the 911. Now, as the 911 was initially released in 1963 as the 901. With this 911 GTS, we've had a lot of other GTS models since then. We've had the 928 GTS. We've had quite a few 911 GTSs, 997, 991, now we're on 992, and it's bled over to all of the other Porsche models, as we have Panamera GTS, Cayenne GTS, 718 or Cayman GTS, and Boxer GTS. And in my personal opinion, I feel like it's probably the best model on all the Porsche lines, as it's a great mix of sportiness, but also comfortness, and it also looks pretty badass as well. So I just want to give you guys a quick history of where GTS comes from. Now, let's go about what are some of the differences between the front and the front of the GTS. Here on the 911 Carrera GTS, we have something called the Sport Design Package. So as standard, that's going to give you a little bit more aggressive front bumper, side skirt, which we'll talk about here in a moment, and rear fascia. Now, you're going to notice there's only one ear flap on this GTS front bumper. Makes it look a little bit more aggressive, but it's fixed. On the 911 Carrera S, we have the standard 911 bumper, but these air flaps move, and that's to allow either more air to cool the engine or even to heat it up if maybe you're in very, very cold climates and you first start the car and it needs to get warm to operating temperature. So that's one of the biggest things we're going to find here on the front. We're also going to see some differences here on the headlights. On the 911 GTS, we have something called LED headlights with PDLS Plus, and then on the 911 Carrera S, we have the standard LED lights, and on the GTS they're going to be a black, so it makes it look a little bit more aggressive. Now, what's all this hoopla about these PDLS headlights, and what does it stand for? It actually stands for Porsche Dynamic Lighting System, and it's going to give you a couple things. One is high beam assistant. So if you're late at night and there's no street lights and you're driving, they'll automatically put the high beams on. As a car approaches, high beams will go off, as there's a camera system that's actually up in the windshield that's going to read how much light is oncoming. As the car passes, they'll turn the high beams back on. But we've also got the dynamic lighting portion of this, which as you're going through these bends, you'll be here in Southern California, we're on Ortega Highway, and it's going to light up, and the lights are actually going to swivel as you're going through the corners. So this is all things that are standard as part of the 911 GTS opposed to the Carrera S. Now let's go ahead and hop to the side and talk about what are some of the differences we're going to find on the side of the 911 Carrera S versus the GTS. Okay, so here from the side, I'm going to start talking about the suspension differences from the GTS over to that 911 Carrera S. Biggest thing we're going to find is the GTS comes standard with what we call PASM, or Porsche Active Suspension Management, and it's going to lower the car to 10 more millimeters. You can see that the car sits a little bit lower, gives it more of an aggressive ride and feel. You can stiffen up the suspension or you can soften it depending on your mood for that day. Now, on the rear on the 911 GTS, we're going to find something called helper springs. This is very almost 911 Turbo-esque suspension. On the 911 Carrera S, we're not going to have that as part of the suspension. Now, going over to the wheels, you'll notice looks very aggressive here on this 911 GTS. That's because these are Turbo S 911 center locking wheels. We're going to have 20s in the front, 21s in the rear. And on this particular car, they're in high gloss black. In standard 911 GTS fashion, they're going to be in a satin black. But this car, of course, has the high gloss as well as the high gloss here on that side mirror. Now, going to the brakes. These are some, as I like to call, big boy brakes here on the 911 Carrera GTS. This car has brakes that are derived from the 911 Turbo. So it's a mix of 911 Turbo and Turbo S. The brakes are going to be 6-piston in the front, 4-piston in the rear, 408 millimeters in the front. Wow, that's large. And in the back, we're going to have 380 millimeters. Now, how does that compare to the 911 Carrera S? Well, in the front, we're going to have 6-piston and 4-piston in the rear. The diameter is quite a bit smaller. And you'll notice here, as I'm showing some of these clips of the brakes, they're only 350 millimeters in both the front and the rear. So they're quite a bit smaller. It's not going to have quite as good of braking power. A couple other things we're going to notice here on the 911 GTS is down there on the door, it says GTS. That's in typical Porsche 911 GTS fashion, and this car is no different. Now, let's go and hop to the back and talk about what are some of the differences we're going to find from the Carrera S to the 911 GTS. Okay, so we're going to start off by talking about what can we see exteriorly here on the 911 GTS versus the Carrera S. Then we're going to hop into the power plant of both of these cars. So first off, you're going to notice on the GTS, we have a clear taillight, which is actually called the exclusive design taillight. It's all clear with a little bit of black accents, makes it look very aggressive. On the Carrera S, as standard, we have the red light, and it's going to be a little bit of clear, but mostly red. It's also going to change with this exclusive design taillight. The brake light up here above, it's going to be an option on the Carrera S, but again, it's standard here on the GTS. Right below the light, we have the Porsche lettering in satin black, which looks very aggressive. Matches the other black accents here on the GTS models. On the Carrera S as standard, we're going to have it in silver, and it's going to say Porsche, and typically 911 Carrera S. On this car, it was removed just to say 911, which I think makes it maybe look a little bit more classy and clean. On this car, it's been completely removed. So all we have is Porsche. Unless you're a true Porsche file, you may not know this is a GTS, but on this car, again, it's been completely removed. Now, we talked about the front sport design package earlier, also translates here to the rear as well. So we're going to have these little extra flares here, and on this particular car, it's going to be in high gloss black. On most GTS, it's going to be in a satin black. Also, is going to relocate this rear license plate. It's lower on the standard 12, with the sport design, it's actually going to move it up just a little bit. Right next to that, we're going to find one of my most favorite features on 911s, and that is sport exhaust. On this car, sport exhaust is going to be standard, and you're going to have these two nice big pipes, and they're going to be in black with the GTS. It's kind of derived from the GT2 RS of the previous generation, 991.2 911. Now, on the standard exhaust for the Carrera S, it's going to be a quad exhaust. It's not going to give you near as many verbals. I think it's well worth it. Now, you can option it on the Carrera S, but it's going to be a little bit over $3,000 as an option. So again, I'm a big proponent of sport exhaust on all 911s. Now, we also have these stripes here on this GTS, which is actually an exclusive option and was derived from the 911 Turbo S exclusive series from 991.2. So talking about the power plant here, which is one of the most important parts of a Porsche 911, both cars have a 3-liter flat-six twin turbocharged motor. The Carrera S has 443 horsepower. We jump up 30 horsepower on the Carrera GTS to 473. We've also got an increase in torque as well on 30 foot-pounds, or about 350 on the Carrera S to about 380 here on the Carrera GTS. Now, exactly how is that achieved? Well, there's an increase in boost pressure on the turbos from the S to the GTS. It's 16 on the S, up to 19 PSI on the GTS. We've also got some remapping of the engine control unit that's going to make it a little bit more powerful. And that's pretty much how it was done on the GTS to just get more power. The dual mass flywheel is also strengthened because of the increased torque here on the GTS. So as you guys can maybe tell, I love the GTS. It's very, very sporty and aggressive, but not too crazy. maybe like the Turbo S is for some of us normal drivers, unless you're maybe a race car driver. But that's enough about the outside and as well as the motor. Let's hop to the inside and talk and highlight what are some of the changes. Okay, so on the interior, one of the biggest things we're going to notice is this GT Sport steering wheel as standard on the 911 GTS. It's going to be a little bit smaller, and it's also going to be a little bit more aggressive and give us a 12 o'clock marker as well. We can get this steering wheel in Racetex leather with a little bit carbon fiber as on the Carrera S, but it's going to be an option. Again, standard here on the GTS. Now, on the interior trim, standard on the 911 GTS is going to be a black brushed anodized aluminum. This particular car has a pretty slick carbon fiber, so you're going to see that here on the steering wheel. Also has it on the doors, and it also has the door sills in carbon fiber as well, which I think looks very sporty and matches the sportiness of this 911 GTS. Now, a couple other things you're going to notice on some other GTS models. We're going to have GTS in the headrest. We're also going to have Sport Plus seats as standard here on the GTS. We're going to have sport seats on the Carrera S as well. One of my other favorites is this Sport Chrono package, like I talked about earlier, is also going to be standard on the GTS. What does that get you? Well, that actually gets you normal, sport, Sport Plus, and individual mode. Standard 911s are going to have normal, wet, and sport modes. Sport Plus gives you something called launch control, and it also gives you something called the sport response button here on the steering wheel, which gives you 20 seconds of full boost, and you can keep pressing it as many times as you want. It reminds me, for those of us who grew up watching Fast and the Furious, it reminds me of NOS. We just don't have to turn on the bottle here in our passenger seat. So that's going to be some of the biggest changes we're going to find. Most GTSs are not going to have seat ventilation because we have this Racetex interior seats, which is going to have in the doors. It's going to have it in the insides of the seats. This car does not have the GTS interior package, so we can get seat ventilation, which is nice, especially for those of you who are in the hotter climates. So that's one of the biggest things we're going to notice. GTS interior package is also going to change the tachometer as well as the Sports Chrono color. It's either going to be in white/chalk or carmine red. Also will change the stitching here of the interior as well. So just some differences we'll find from GTS. From S, this car has the standard interior with some nice carbon fiber bits. On the Carrera S, again, you're not going to see that Sport Chrono package. So that pretty much wraps up everything that we're going to see on the interior. Now, when shopping for a 911, price point may be important to you. Now, what are we going to see on a standard Carrera S Cabriolet versus a Carrera GTS Cabriolet with not a single option? Well, it's going to be about $19,000 difference from S to GTS, but if I did my job right on this video, those options are well worth it. As we're talking about brakes, power plant, they also make a lot less GTSs than they do Carrera S's, so there's a lot of value in that $19,000. If you were to try to get your Carrera S up to the GTS trim level, it's going to cost a lot more than that, and you're not even going to have the engine or suspension. That's a pretty big one. I hope this video was helpful for you guys. If you guys have any questions, of course, leave them down in the comments below. But let's briefly talk about what exactly does this 911 GTS have, and what does it make it so special? Okay, so let's go ahead and take this 911 GTS for a quick spin, and we're going to talk about what makes this 911 GTS so unique. For starters, as we talked about earlier, this car is in Python green, which is going to be discontinued here for model year 2024. So this is a unique opportunity to still get a Python green 911 before it is no longer. That's pretty sweet. This will be the last year of the Python green 911 GTS. Now, of course, this is a cabriolet, and we've got these really cool stripes, which are actually derived from the 911 Turbo S exclusive series on this particular car. Makes it extra special and unique. We have the extended range fuel tank, which I think is probably your most bang for your buck on the entire configurator. Just over $200 to get a 23-gallon fuel tank. I think that's huge. This particular Python Green 911 GTS has that. We also have the model designation on the rear, which we talked about earlier, is gone, so it makes it look really clean. It just says Porsche. That's all it says there on the back. We've also got Power Steering Plus. So what does that do? Well, at lower speeds, that actually helps us with a little bit more maneuverability at the lower speeds, so that's a nice add on this car.
We've got that exterior package in high gloss black. So we've got all these black high gloss trim pieces, the wheels, the front lip, the back, the side mirrors. So that adds a pretty cool exclusive look to this GTS. We also have the GT steering wheel, but in leather, which I think is actually a good add, because on most GTSs, we're gonna have a race tech steering wheel, which in the end is not gonna wear that well. This is great, and it's not gonna get matted down, of course, being all in leather. Now there's also the exclusive design fuel cap, small add, but of course it's all these small things that make this car so special. So as soon as we add that, it's gonna give us just aluminum look fuel cap. We have the central tachometer here in Guards Red, as well as the Sports Chrono package. So of course that makes it special. And of course we've got that GTS there on the central tack. Seat belts are also in red. It's gonna match the tacks and also match those nice turbo brakes there on the outside. The engine compartment is in titanium gray. It's just a little bit different color. You'll see that here that I'm showing you guys now, but that gives it a little bit more of a sportier look and feel. And then we've got the premium package. And what exactly is included in the premium package? Well, we've got the surround view, which is a 360 camera. So that's a really nice add. It'll help you get a front, 2 side cameras, and a back camera. Just helps you really look, especially when you're going in those parking lots, and help you see what's going on. We've got the storage package, which is actually going to give you a passenger side footwell net here on the passenger side. We've also got the power folding mirrors, so when you lock the car, you can fold them in, or if you're in a tight spot, you can just fold them in, which is nice. We've got the ambient lighting, so you can change the interior of the car, so that's always great. There's a bunch of colors you can change. We've got the lane change assist, so there's 3 little lights that are gonna light up there in the side mirror if somebody's in your blind spot, so we've got that. And then last but not least, we have Bose surround sound. So that's a pretty nice add on that car. So if you guys wanna check out the entire build sheet, I'll actually add it here to the end of this video if you wanna check out the full one. But that pretty much wraps it up. The MSRP on this car is $175. So it's a well-contented 911 GTS Cabriolet. So again, I really appreciate you guys watching this video. I hope you learned a little bit about what are some of the main differences we can find from a Carrera S to a Carrera GTS, and also about what makes this Python green car so special. So I appreciate you guys watching this video. We'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.